Welcome to the Veterinary Culture Lab, where science meets real-world application. I'm Andi Davison.
And I'm Josh Weissman. Together, we'll show you an evidence-based blueprint for renovating culture in your veterinary team, one episode at a time.
Every veterinary team needs structure and clear expectations, but some teams stop there, and others, they build trust, support, and real commitment on top of it. Today, we're digging into the science behind what actually drives motivation, well-being, and performance, and why that leadership shift matters.
What's up, On?
How are you, Josh?
You know what I'm thinking of? There was, it was a bird. We used to have a parrot named Penelope, and Penelope was a big talker, and I don't know where she got it, but she would always say my name like this. Hi, Josh.
She probably learned it from Siri, because Siri calls me Andi.
Andi.
Andi. It's very, very posh. And I think Josh is kind of posh
Josh.
too.
Oh,
yeah.
that is actually, when you put the British accent behind it, that is kind of posh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be Mr. Posh today. Andi, I have to share with you. I got one of these alert things, these news things, and I know you and Mike are big Universal Studios people.
That we are.
And one of the reasons that I think you like Universal Studios is because you're also a little bit obsessed with Harry Potter.
Oh, I love Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Did you hear that they are building a hospital in Harry Potter world, which has nothing to do with Florida Man, by the way?
I hope not, because it needs to be successful.
Yeah, no.
I did not hear. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, they're building a hospital in Harry Potter world just in case Dumbledore gets a staph infection.
Yeah. Now, if this hospital also treated all the mythical creatures, like, I might go. I'm just going to go. Like,
right.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine a Harry Potter veterinary hospital?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Well, with all the Fantastic Beasts books and that whole direction and series, I could see that being actually a thing. So yes, I can.
I see a future in which you write a Harry Potter book about a veterinary practice. And
veterinary fan fiction from Harry Potter. Ooh. I bet you somebody has also thought of this, that there may already be something out there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. If not, I could see this happening. It's something legitimate, not dad jokey, that I'm genuinely excited for. This coming weekend. So it's squarely fall here in Colorado, and much like you, I come from the Midwest, and so you would think that I would be accustomed to cold, but I think also, much like you, I've become a bit wimpy in my old age, and I am in a constant state of freezing this past week, and I don't know what's wrong with me. But this weekend, we are, assuming everything works out flights-wise, going to Hotlanta. We're going to Atlanta. We are getting a private behind-the-scenes tour of the Georgia Aquarium, and I am completely geeking out over it. I'm so excited.
Oh my God. I'm so excited for you. You had better take all the pictures and all the videos.
There will be plenty.
And steal an otter. Bring one.
You might. Right? Actually, I really want a puffin.
Ooh, yeah. I feel like that would look really good on the banister behind your office space, to have just a puffin hanging out with his little orange beak.
Rue sleeping on the chair and the puffin on the banister above. Yeah. I think that's perfect. I agree.
Yeah. I mean,
what about you? What are you excited for lately?
I am excited for silly horse girl things. So currently I have a team of incredible friends that are helping me sort of clean up the farm a bit. And we are ripping out fence that is no longer needed, that is a little bit dilapidated, that I've been looking at for the past 3 or 4 years going, why is that fence there? Couldn't we just rip it out? And now I have my team of amazing friends that are out there as we speak, ripping out the fence that we don't need and opening up some paddocks and just cleaning it up. And it looks so good. And I'm really excited about that silly thing. It's fun, the things that horse girls get excited about. But yes.
No, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, this sounds like this is going to be a substantive change to the farm and the farm functionality. And that is really exciting. I also would like to point out to listeners that who can't see you, you are very comfortably in your office with a nice little hoodie on, sitting at a computer in front of a fancy
Mhm.
microphone while your friends
Mm.
are out doing hard labor on your farm.
Yeah. And I love them
And
for it, and they're
I,
great, and they're
yeah,
doing a much better job than I would do.
I love everything about this.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
Turning to the task at hand, Andy, as much as I would very much like to talk about the farm, let's talk about the paper for this
Mm.
episode. So, Andy, like you, I've spent quite a lot of time visiting with veterinary teams at conferences and practices, and I'm thinking of two right now. Now, I'm going to change names to protect the innocent and perhaps not so.
Mhm.
We'll call them Energy Central Animal Hospital and Ho Hum Veterinary Clinic. All right. At Ho Hum, when I got to visit with them, people were busy. They were definitely like taking care of patients and they were generally getting things done. But the more time I spent there, the more it seemed like they were kind of just going through the motions, like, doing the minimum necessary work. It wasn't like they were slacking or not doing things. They were just sort of doing what they needed to get by. Nobody was really performing at their peak. It often took kind of someone kind of giving them a little bit of a nudge for them to do anything more than the bare necessities. And you didn't really see anybody's individual or collective magic. Now, at Energy Central, when I got to visit with that hospital and spend a few days there, it was very, very different. There was a real buzz in the practice, and you could just feel how everyone was extremely committed, not only to getting their shit done, but also doing it efficiently and as a team, like together, and with a little bit of fun mixed in. Like this
Mhm.
was a very fun place to be. It wasn't just this like energy of performance, it was also kind of social energy. It was really cool. Well, a recent meta analysis that we're going to talk about today might actually explain a lot of the differences between Ho Hum and Energy Central. But before we get to that paper, I wanted to ask you a question, my partner in crime.
Mhm.
But this question, it's going to take a little bit of setup. Okay. So stick with me for a moment here. All right.
Okay.
Andy, first, what I want you to do is I want you to think of a time that you worked on a team or around a team where it kind of felt like, everybody was kind of out for themselves. It wasn't that people were mean. This wasn't a bad thing. It was just that whether it was the work itself or management or the culture, like everyone just seemed to be kind of just trying not to get into trouble. Okay. Can you picture that team?
I can.
Okay, great. Now what I want you to do is I want you to think of maybe a time when you worked on or with or alongside a very different team, a team where it felt like everyone, even the people in charge, had your back. Okay. So now imagine a scenario. All right. You're a technician, you're hanging out in the treatment room. It's been a very chaotic morning, but somehow you got through all the chaos. Okay. So now you're finally having a moment of woosah. You can chill out. Treatments are all accounted for. There's no beeping fluid pumps. All the patients have been discharged or are resting comfortably. So there's literally nothing to do for the first time in hours. You can breathe. But then you hear the phone ring. Now, first it's line one that's ringing, but then line two starts ringing as well. And you notice that line one has still not been picked up. And then all of a sudden, line three starts ringing. It's almost as if nobody in the practice is answering the phones. Okay, so you're the treatment tech. It is, quote, not in your job description to answer phones, right? So imagine yourself in the hospital with a team and with management who's like that first team. They're just kind of out for themselves. In that scenario, what do you do? What do you do? So you're working around a team that has consistently been the kind of team they're just out for themselves. They're just trying to avoid getting into trouble. Nobody's really going above and beyond for each other. It's not unsupportive, it's just not supportive. You hear line one ring, then line two starts ringing, then line three starts ringing after this chaotic morning. How do you respond? Be honest. This is a safe space. No judgment here.
That's good because I would probably not respond positively. There's a really good chance that there would be some huffing, some sighing, some eye rolling. Um, Depending on who was standing there with me, I would probably verbally say something like, are they even up there? Are they even up there doing their jobs? Right? I would absolutely question whether or not they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And probably do it loudly enough to like gather, some some rah-rahs in the background, right? Like let's gather some people that agree with me so that I can justify my of what's may or may not be going on at the front desk. Because that's not my job. That's not my problem. What are they doing? They must not be doing anything. They're eating bonbons up there, right? After doing that, I would probably, because the whole don't want to get in trouble, that resonates hard with me. And so I would probably end up, answering the phone, being annoyed with a negative tone, not being very helpful because I didn't want to then get in trouble, right? They're eating bonbons up at the front desk and it's going to fall back on me one way or another. So I might as well answer this damn phone so that I don't get in trouble. And I'd answer the phone probably with that attitude. And whoever's on the other end of the phone is probably going to know that that's how I feel about it.
Dreading the technician answering the phone after the fifth or sixth ring.
Right?
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that candor.
Yeah.
I hear you, by the way. I've been in those roles. Like I've worked around teams that are like that where I have felt exactly the same. Like the first response is judgment and like annoyance. And then begrudgingly after a while, like you kind of quote help out, but really it's more about like just dealing with this thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Cover your ass. Yep. Okay, so now let's switch gears here. Let's go back to the second team. So I asked you to think about a team that you worked with that you felt like everybody here has really kind of got my back. And it's a pretty supportive environment. Now, same scenario. It's been a just insane morning. You are exhausted. You finally get a moment to breathe, and then line 1 rings. And while it's ringing, line 2 starts ringing, and then line 3 starts ringing, and it seems like nobody's answering the phones. How do you respond in this context?
I would give the front desk the benefit of the doubt. My first thought would not be judgment, right? Like they're up there eating bonbons. It would be, oh my goodness, they must be busy doing something else that's important. Let me jump in and help them. And it would be a much more willing and, thank goodness I have a minute to breathe and there aren't 15 pumps beeping because now I can jump in to answer the phone because who knows, they might be up there dealing with a, whole line of clients or the printer just took a shit or whatever. And I'd be way more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Same human being, same exact scenarios, 2 very different responses. And those responses are probably likely to have a very different impact. I mean, you said it yourself, not just on the client on the other end of the phone, but the rest of the team, right?
Oh, yeah.
It turns out, Andi, that evidence suggests that the way that people around us support us at work really makes a big difference in how we feel, how motivated we are, and how we perform. So that's what today's paper is really about. The study that I selected to discuss today is titled Interpersonal Supports for Basic Psychological Needs and Their Relations with Motivation, Wellbeing, and Performance, a meta-analysis. And this study basically asked the big question. If people's self-determination needs, and we'll talk about what that means, if people's self-determination needs are satisfied by interpersonal support from coworkers and bosses, does that actually impact their workplace well-being, their motivation, and their performance? Well, the spoiler alert, it does. And in some cases, it actually has really big impacts. So how did they come to that conclusion? Well, the design of this paper, this was a massive meta-analysis, and I mean massive. They included hundreds of studies. This is one of the larger meta-analyses that I've seen in the social sciences that we get interested in. It had an N, so it was total participants of over 400,000 individuals.
Wow.
It was a very, very large cross-sectional data set. The authors looked at the impact of interpersonal support both laterally. So laterally is like side by side. You could think like coworkers, like you could make the argument like you and the CSRs. You could say you and the associate veterinarians, perchance, in some ways that might not be totally lateral, but definitely like you and the other technicians, right? Or associate and associate. So they looked at the impact of interpersonal support laterally, and then they also looked at it vertically. So that's like where there's power differences. So like a manager to a team, a medical director to an associate, things like that. And they looked at those across the 3 self-determination needs. So these are the needs for autonomy, relatedness, and competence. And we're going to put a link for those of you, we're not going to take a deep dive into what self-determination theory is and what it means, but we'll put a link to a really great website from the original kind of authors on this model on self-determination, so you can take a little bit deeper dive if you're interested. So they compared that to outcomes like autonomous versus controlled motivation, which you could think of as like, do people do the things that are expected of them or would be helpful on their own, or do they need to be cajoled or told to? They compared it to outcomes like subjective well-being. So basically, how do people feel at work? Do they have good emotions at work or bad emotions at work? And then they looked at those outcomes as compared to performance. They then assess these variables for relationships. In other words, if you know that you work with a team that supports your needs for autonomy, relatedness, and competency, does that in any way predict your autonomous motivation, your well-being, and your performance? Now, one thing that's important to note here, Andi, because I think it strengthens the quality of this study, while well-being and autonomous motivation are typically conducted via self-assessment, measured by a self-assessment, much of the performance data was actually other rated. So it was things like how supervisors rated those people's performance, or objective performance measures like, task completion and things like that. So what were the key findings? What did they discover here? Well, needs support strongly correlates with autonomous motivation and well-being, and it's best if it comes both from those in charge and those we work alongside. Need support for managers, though, really strongly correlated with performance, with just a little bit of boost if it also comes from peers. So it seems that it's really, really critical for managers to support those needs if performance is something that you're after. Leader autonomy support in particular strongly correlated with job satisfaction, once again, with a little bit of a boost if those needs were also supported by peers and colleagues. This actually echoes some of what we talked about back in episode 6 when we looked at the power of high quality connections, which I know is something that you're really excited about, Andi. And in fact, we might say that supporting people's autonomy, relatedness, and competency needs actually is a form of a high quality connection. I like to think of this like kind of like the music of a veterinary workplace, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about. When you walk into a workplace that's really humming along, just doing well, it feels like music. So autonomy, competence, relatedness, these are like the 3 special instruments that help the team make sounds that sound good. Now, if those instruments are like not fully supported, we're not maintaining them interpersonally really well, they're still gonna make sounds. But if we can fire these things up and like really amplify these instruments, then the whole song ends up sounding exponentially better. Andi, I think it's pretty clear how powerfully autonomy, relatedness, and competence needs support really can be in the workplace. So my question to you is, why is this not happening more? Like, what do you think gets in the way of veterinary teams and veterinary leaders actually really just actively and intentionally providing this kind of interpersonal support to each other?
Yeah, I sat with this one for a minute, and my initial thought jumped pretty quickly to time, right? We don't think we have time. We're always busy. There's always something happening. We've got to get it done. Everybody wants to go home. And I think that it goes deeper than that. I think that there's more to it than that. And I wonder if it's not kind of a mix of a couple of things, with the first thing being our human sort of tendency, right, to focus on ourselves, our human tendency to put ourselves as our priority. Now, to be clear, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Our survival as a human is important to us, and it should be a priority. And I think that it might be a factor here because we get real busy focusing on what we need, focusing on what's going on in our lives, in our career, in our sphere of the world. And sometimes we forget about those other people that are around us and what the other people might need. And I think that plays into the second thing that really came to mind for me here, which is the assumption that we think they know that we support those things, right? Oh, they know. They know that they have some say in all of this. They know that. And we assume that they know. And they don't. And they really need for you to remind them and show them and reiterate that to them, because they too are also in their own head, putting themselves first, thinking about their lives, their career, what they have to do after work today. And so, yeah, I think that time is a thing, right? We are busy. We got a lot going on. There's all kinds of things. The dumpster's on fire. Oh my God. But I think that it goes deeper than that, and that it kind of weaves those other two components in as well. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think the time thing is a real big pressure. I mean, so many of us in veterinary practices, we feel like we're doing more with less every day, and that stress can drive us to adopt a very internalized mindset. And once we start getting inside our own heads, we sort of lose that connection to others, and whether intentionally or not, we're just not taking the time to help them out and to support them. And I really love your perspective on we think they already know. Like, how many times have we heard, a veterinary manager say, like, well, they know that they can come to me for anything. Okay, how do they know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the difference between intention and perception is demonstration. It's demonstrating what we
Yeah.
intend for others to feel and perceive. And we have to demonstrate things consistently over time for that belief to really stick. This leads to some of the sort of like big thinking takeaways from the paper. One of the things that really stood out to me was this idea of what I sort of interpret the authors as suggesting, that we have to learn to shift our mindset from compliance driving focus to commitment gaining focus. It's, obviously, especially when we're in a leadership position, our goal is to try and get the people around us to do things. Like, we need them to get certain things done. But I think sometimes we get so worried about the outcomes in veterinary medicine that it can lead us to be a little bit control freaky.
What?
I know, shocking, right? Like, no way. Never heard of that before.
Oh,
Right?
micromanaging? What?
Yeah. And I think that's, it's that can come from this compliance driving mindset. Like, I need people to get things done, and I need them to get things done in a particular way. But really what we need is for people to engender some form of commitment to the tasks that we're asking them to do, right? And that is a little bit different. This made me think of a veterinarian that I worked with many years ago who insisted on doing all of the trainings for the technicians. They wanted to be the one that trained, like, on all the tasks and expectations, how to set up the OR, how to run anesthesia here, the process for lab services, things like that. It was really interesting to me because it was like, I found myself thinking, like, why isn't our lead technician doing this? Like, why is it the doctor? What also stood out was her approach. I think this was somebody who was very compliance driven. And so she came across as a little control freaky. She would tell us how to do things, but never ask a single question. And she was really quite, I mean, in my perception, a little aggressive with her expectations, and super quick to vocally point out when people, quote, did it wrong and sort of redirect them. So, Andi, if the goal here is to put commitment over compliance, it's not that compliance is not a goal. It's that my goal as a trainer or as a teacher is to help you feel committed to the activity or task I've asked of you. So if the goal is to garner understanding, ownership, and commitment among, like, the tech team in this scenario, how would you advise this doctor to approach training differently?
My mind goes to horses on this one, right? Like, a horse metaphor has painted itself beautifully in my head. And for all of our horse listeners out there, if you are riding your horse and you have the reins gathered up, right, real tight, and you got to control every movement of that horse, and you've got to hang on to the reins with every ounce of strength that you have, that horse is going to get nervous. That horse is going to start to spook at nothing. That horse is going to start to jig around a little bit, and they won't relax. And they definitely won't absorb whatever it is you're trying to teach them, right? Because they're like, oh God, what's wrong? What's happening? I'm going to get in trouble. Why am I going to get in trouble? Oh no. And there's, like, added pressure put on, Now, yeah, sometimes there's reasons to do that, but we're talking general here. So my first thought is this person needs to loosen the reins a little bit, right? Loosen the reins. Give them some slack, give them some space, and allow for mistakes, allow for questions, allow for screw ups, right? And probably include other people, right? Like, good God, one person training everybody, like that sounds exhausting. And that just sounds exhausting. So loosening the reins and allowing more people to become involved, allowing more questions, making it more conversational, right? This is why we're doing it. You know, what stands out to you? What questions do you have? Getting curious. Those are some of the bigger things that stood out in listening to that training approach.
I love that. That's actually an excellent segue to the second big takeaway that I garnered from this study. I started to think of this as like an equation. Clarity plus coaching equals kindness and success. So, so the takeaway for me from this study, or one of the big takeaways for me for this study, is the power of supporting competency needs. Human beings, all of us, we all crave the feeling of growth. And we all want to feel like we're like things that are important to us, we're moving toward mastery. Like we're getting better at things. And at some day we can hang our hat on it and say, I'm actually really good at this, right? But competence isn't something that we give or force on someone. It's something that they develop. In other words, I can't micromanage my way to you mastering placing an IV catheter or doing a splenectomy. Like there's no way, to use your horse analogy, there's no way I can tighten the reins tight enough to make you master it. You've got to go through the awkwardness of building the muscle memory and skill. So instead of barking out orders or writing a 17-page SOP, I think we really need to do based on this study is paint a clear picture of the goal. Like make it very clear. This is what I'm hoping you can accomplish for me or achieve or master. Really define what success looks like. Like, Andi, I'll know that you're good at this when you can successfully conduct a splenectomy on your own in less than an hour and build a space for practice. And to your point, safe failure, like allowing for mistakes in a safe way. And then providing timely, helpful feedback frequently. So, that feedback loop with a healthy dose of good on you for the stuff that's actually going really well. Andi, here's one thing that I know about you. I've gotten to spend the last few years with you a lot, and I've learned a lot about you. And one thing that's really, really impressive to me is in your career, you've built up an unbelievable toolbox of skills in and outside of veterinary medicine. So what I'm hoping you can do for me here is think of a particular skill that was difficult for you to master, but you did with the help of someone else. And I want you to share with me just briefly, what was that skill? But really what I want you to share with me is, what did that individual do that helped you overcome this challenge, this fear, and master this skill?
I think I'm actually going to go with a non-veterinary skill for this. Is that okay?
Big thumbs up.
It's a horse skill, so no surprise there, right? It's a horse skill. Yeah. And it's kind of a recent one that I've been working on and, I don't know, struggling with. I guess I'll use that word. And it surrounds my young horse, Marshall, right? Marshall's 5, and he is a young horse, right? Who does silly young horse things. And I'm no longer a young horse, right? I'm an older rider these days, and when things don't go well, the ground is hard, and I don't like to find out what that feels like. And so I was struggling a little bit with figuring out how to ride him consistently so that I could build up my confidence with him. And that is absolutely something that I need to do within myself. Nobody is going to tighten the reins up on me enough to be like, you will be confident enough to get on this 5-year-old baby in the wind in the morning when he could very well spook at nothing, right? I had to figure out what that was like on my own. And my trainer, Claire, has been wonderful in helping me with that. And some of the ways that she's done that have been, she's backed off, which is great, right? She kind of helps me talk through why I'm concerned, what I'm kind of nervous about, what we might do about that. And then she gives me the space to play with it. She gives me that time to sort of learn on my own and go at my own pace rather than constantly being there going, did you ride him? How did it go? What did you do? What is it windy there? What is it like? Did he spook? Right? Like she's not constantly there. She's giving me that space. However, if something doesn't go well, or I have a question, or, I need her, she's right there. I can reach out and go, hey, this happened, or hey, I'm particularly nervous about this. What do you think? And she's right there to support me in those things without, standing, breathing down my neck going, it's fine. You're fine. It's fine. You can do this. It's not a big deal. Come on, come on, come on. And that really helps me when it comes to getting better at a skill that I'm not great at.
Yeah, it sounds to me like this is something that you would have really struggled with, or perhaps even given up on if you were all by yourself doing it. But having someone like Claire who can provide that guidance, enough of a push to get you moving, but also some space to explore it, some space to give you the time to practice on your own at your own pace, and just being there to say, hey, I got you. I got your back. That makes a big, big difference for you. Yeah. That's a wonderful segue to the last big takeaway for me, which is the power of peer support. I know I haven't met Claire, but I know a bit about the relationship that you have with her. And Claire to me feels like somebody who fits two roles in your life. She is both an educator, so somebody in a position of power when she's helping train you and your horse, but she's also a peer. She's a friend. And peer relatedness support is actually particularly strong, according to this research, feeling as if the people that we work with, whatever context that is, hold you in high regard, think of you warmly, and want you to be a part of the team and succeed goes a long way to strengthening motivation, satisfaction, and performance. And it sounds like you get a bit of that with the relationship with Claire, which is great. There was a time I didn't get this. I didn't understand this. I would get frustrated, even annoyed, when the team that I was leading was, quote, goofing off or slacking, telling jokes, sharing memes, or just generally enjoying each other's companies, playing on their phones instead of working. Like I remember walking through the hospital, be like, if you've got time to blabber, you've got time to clean. Like what's going on here, right? What I now understand is that I should have actually viewed those times as cultivating the essential nutrients of social bonding. And that is really, really critical. Teams that like and support each other just do better. So we should make it as easy as possible for them to connect in these ways.
Hey there. If this conversation is landing with you, I bet you aren't alone. Why not follow the podcast or share the episode with some of your fellow vet crew? Together, we can all be part of a community that believes that thriving in vet med is possible and actively works to build the profession we all deserve. And if you're ready to take the next step, check out our upcoming Flourish Academy masterclass in cultivating positive team communication. It's linked in the show notes. Now, back to the Culture Lab.
This then begs the question, of course, how do we renovate our veterinary cultures, the workplaces that we work in, to adopt the lessons from this study? How do we make sure that we are creating workplaces that do actually support the autonomy, relatedness, and competency needs that all of us have? So one thing that I thought of is what I'm going to call like autonomy support moves. For leaders, one thing that can really be helpful here is just really clearly explaining the why for things. A client recently grew super frustrated when their team was consistently ignoring the dress code policy. This was a conversation that we were having with an actual Flourish client, and the CEO of the practice expressed like really strong frustration. The team isn't following the dress code. We had a long conversation with this individual, and it helped both them and us realize that the team actually had no idea why the dress code existed. Like they knew about the dress code. They knew that the CEO was going to occasionally call them out on it. They had read the employee handbook, but they didn't really understand why. And it turned out that the why was actually, it took the CEO a little bit to really think through and express it, on their own before they could actually share it with the team. It turned out that for this hospital owner, having a dress code allowed the team to appear visually like a unified group, which is something that's really important to this individual. So if they looked similar, not exactly the same, it wasn't uniforms, it was a dress code, but if they looked similar, that was one tangible, visible way of conveying to the world, to the community, we are one. When people understand the why behind something, they are way more likely to buy into it willingly. whether they agree with it or not. That's the thing, right? And so taking time as a leader to really think about, why do I want this outcome? Why is this thing important to me? And then ask yourself 2 or 3 layers of why about those things to get to the real deep need, and then express that to your team can be really helpful. And then really for everybody, leaders or peers, so laterally or vertically, agency questions. Getting in the habit of asking agency questions. These are questions that help us provide clear goals and then invite people to be a part of the how. So for example, Dr. Davison, we've got to get through these surgeries today by 2 p.m. I see 2 options for us here. Like, I can pull somebody out of exam rooms and add them to your surgery team, or we can move this surgery that's not really emergent to tomorrow. What do you think, Dr. Davison? Or, hey, technicians, this next patient is probably going to be really super nervous. What do you guys think that we could do to make him more comfortable and get the diagnostics done in the 10-minute time slot that we have available? Right? Those are agency questions. They invite others to be a part of it. Andi, what are things that you think veterinary teams or leaders can do to send the message to people on their teams or the people around them? Your voice, your opinion, your control, it matters here.
I love the agency questions. I love the including the team in figuring out how to get to the goal. I love that. And I actually have, an actual experience where I did that, right? Back before I knew what I was doing, I did that. And it was about a scheduling problem, right? Like I could not figure out how to get all of these shifts covered. And I was racking my brain. I was going insane because I thought I needed to do it and I was the only resource. And, it was up to me or it wasn't going to get done. And I was at my wit's end to this stinking schedule to try to figure out how to make it work. And I remember one of the techs on my team happened to wander into my office right in the middle of this moment. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot figure out how to get this schedule done. And in a moment of desperation, which it felt like a moment of desperation for me, but it was actually a moment of clarity. I looked at her and I said, do you have any ideas on how I can make this work? So I shared the goal. I need to have this many techs on these times for these shifts. And she looked at me and within 5 minutes was like, well, yeah, what about this? And I will be damned if it was not the best idea. We implemented that idea. It worked and they were on board with it, right? Because it wasn't me going, hey, y'all, this is what you're going to do. It was, we came up with this idea together. And Nicole was a part of that decision. And Nicole was a pretty high influencer on the team. And so there were a lot of people that were like, oh, cool. Well, if Nicole was in on it, then yeah, this sounds like a good idea because she knows what we're dealing with and she knows what we're going through. And it's not just manager Andi who thinks she knows,
I love that. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
That's a huge one. That's a huge one. And I think there's lots of different opportunities for people to work that in to their daily lives and their daily conversations.
Find things that you're struggling with or challenged by, and then find people around you who you wouldn't normally include in something like that and ask them, hey, I need a new perspective on this. What do you think? Love that.
When I asked Nicole what her opinion was and what she thought I could do, it reminded her that I was human and that I didn't know and that that's okay. Right. It was a pretty vulnerable moment for me. I remember that. I remember being like, oh no, is this going to be bad because I'm being vulnerable? But it's a great opportunity to remind those other people too, hey, I'm human too. And I don't know. So let's try to figure this out together.
Yeah, it lifted up her sense of power while you were essentially ceding some power to her, which evens the field and that amplifies the experience of autonomy. I think that's lovely. Competence support moves. Let's move to those. So this is something that I think really everybody can embrace. And I think of these as basically feedback loops. Feedback loops are things where, it's not just the one-off, right? Like, hey, Andi, I really need you to, be a little bit quicker with the anal gland appointments, okay? Like they're taking you 15 minutes. I need to get them down to 10, right? That's a directive. A feedback loop, involves all the stuff that we've been talking about with those agency questions and a little bit of coaching. So it's the clarity plus coaching, and then coming back later and saying, "Hey, Andi, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, we agreed that you were going to try these two things, right? To kind of cut a few minutes off of your anal gland appointments. How are they working? How has it helped? What's not working? What are you trying differently now?" Those are feedback loops. So these are best when they're routine, when they're consistent, and when they're normalized. So kind of everybody on the team does it, right? Basically, it's sending the message. We help each other realize our full potential here. It's just who we are. So here's a couple examples of versions of feedback loops. One of them is what's called feed-forward interviews, which, by the way, we will be doing in a more in-depth discussion on feed-forward interviews and some research behind that in future episodes of this podcast. But for now, feed-forward interviews is really about a structured one-on-one time that can be between anybody. It doesn't have to be manager to report. It could really be anybody, in which you explore with someone when they were really rocking and rolling at something at work. Like you get them telling you a detailed story about a time when they were really felt like they were at their best. And then discussing what were the conditions that made that possible for you? What were the strengths that you used in that particular situation? And then we move forward. Okay, how could you use those strengths, and how can we find ways to ensure those conditions are met more often on this next task or this next project or future shifts here at the practice, whatever it might be? So that's a feed-forward interview. The next one is what we call growth rounds. So this is rounds, like we typically do, but this is dedicating a particular portion of our rounds, or actually just having it be its own form of rounds, where one person is the grower. Andi, you're going to be the grower today. And everyone on the team, we're going to go around the room, and every team member gets 60 seconds to share two things about Andi. Number one, what is a strength that Andi has displayed recently? Like, what's something that we've seen in her work that we really feel like is a strength of hers? And then number two, what is one thing that Andi could do differently to grow or improve in her role? All right, so it's just 60 seconds per person. We prep them in advance. We're gonna be doing grow rounds next Friday. Andi's gonna be the grower. Everybody come prepared to share a 60-second tidbit around these two questions. And then the grower's job, Andi, your job in the grower round, is the growth rounds, is to just listen, take notes, and then at the end, you get 5 minutes to ask any clarifying questions. Maybe you didn't understand what somebody was asking, or maybe there's a particular form of support that you need, those kinds of things. So those are some examples of ways that we can operationalize competency support in our environment. And then lastly is relatedness support moves. So for leaders, build in connection time. Like, make sure that you're actually setting aside time in the schedule to get to know your team on a personal level. Take someone out to coffee on the clock, pay them once a week. Schedule routine one-on-ones and make the first few minutes not about work, but just about getting to know that individual, the things outside of the workspace. Celebrate personal things about team members for the first 10 minutes of every team meeting. Take a conflict management course and practice fast, healthy conflict repair at work. And then for teams, I really like this idea of a fan club president program. So at new hire, or maybe even just once a month or so with the existing team, you assign someone to be the fan club president of one of their coworkers. Andi, you are going to be Kelly Coffin's fan club president for the month of November, right? Their role for November, so what you're expected to do then, Andi, is to learn as much about Kelly as you possibly can as a person, right? And then do everything you can to show off how amazing she is to everyone else on the team. Like, that's it. Andi, what are things that have made you feel like your teammates care about you? Like, what are things that have made you really experience this relatedness need? So you felt like someone around you, whether it was a colleague or a manager, really cared about you as a person.
That they knew me as a person, right? That I wasn't just a warm body, that I wasn't just the role that I hold at work, that I wasn't just that chick in the clinic, that I had a whole person in here, and that they make the effort to get to know what that is. What do I like to do outside of work? How do I feel about that? They try to relate to my crazy sense of humor. It's more than just we're doing the job and we're getting the job done. It's I'm doing the job
Yeah.
and we're getting the job done.
Our friend and colleague Zach Mercurio often says that people only add value when they feel valued. And I feel like that's kind of what you're touching on here is like when people take a genuine interest in who you are as a human being, it shows that they value you. And then that helps you want to add value to them and to the organization. I love that. You know who else adds value to my day? Florida Man.
Florida Man.
Oh, we need a Florida Man theme song.
Florida Man. Florida Man. Yeah, I feel like we could come up with something. I feel like there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity here. Oh. This week's Florida Man might be some inspiration for the new Florida Man theme song because the headline for this week's Florida Man is Florida Man thinks his shopping cart is a street legal car. And in this article, there's actually a video of Florida Man in traffic, in the lane, in a busy intersection with his little shopping cart walking along as if it's an actual car. Yeah.
I will be watching that video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And in the video, there's not like a whole bunch of stuff in the cart. It's a very interesting thing. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Florida Man does it once again.
I know. Just when you think you've got it figured out, here he comes with his shopping cart.
You know, Andi, I am grateful that you live in the beautiful state of Florida because I feel like it is providing you and me and our listeners a never-ending pool of entertainment.
Absolutely. It is crazy entertaining. It's often an excuse for things that happen here, right? Like you'll be talking about something and it's, Florida. I mean, that's a valid excuse or a reason or a justification for why that's happening. Florida. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you for bringing that delightful Florida Man headline to this episode. And thank you, everybody out there, for listening to this episode of the Veterinary Culture Lab. We always are grateful and feel joy for the time that you are willing to dedicate to us. Please don't forget to share this episode if you liked it with your colleagues and friends. And if you hated it, you can just delete it off your phone. But we look forward to seeing you next time. Share, like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and enjoy your day, my friends. Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Veterinary Culture Lab, powered by the science of workplace well-being and brought to you by Flourish Veterinary Consulting. If today's episode sparked an idea, made you smile, or got you thinking, hey, I should totally try that, let us know. What do you think? Be sure to subscribe, share, and remember, a thriving veterinary culture is possible, and you don't have to build it alone.